Good morning. Today we are back in the E92 M3, and it is it's much different now that I've begun to put some things back on this car, take some things back off of this car. We have the full Öhlins road and track suspension back on the car. I have the Sportster CS's in the car. I have the black wheels, the Apexes on the car. I have an airbag light, as you can see. I'm gonna have that coated out this afternoon. Man, what a difference this suspension makes on this car. Suspension and tires and these seats, huge, like completely different car. I mean, it's to be expected. It's like $10,000 worth of shit that I just transferred out. I had the stock shocks on the car for a while with the iBox springs. Nothing wrong with it, but once you go back to like a quality coilover setup with my Milwaukee camber plates and everything, it's just a completely different animal. The car drives so incredibly good. I absolutely Love it. I almost forgot how well this car drove with this suspension setup and these tires and just the seats and everything. Man, it just, I don't know, it just made me fall in love with the car all over again, which I knew was going to happen as soon as I started going back down this road of deciding to keep the car, doing all of these things. So, man, this thing is so compliant. It's beautiful. So, I'm running the Bimmer World sway bar end links. You do need to change the end links if you're going to do like coilovers. I had the factory ones, obviously, with the springs, which was totally fine. But if you're going to go as low as this car is, you're going to want to have adjustable sway bar end links. The Bimmer World ones seem to work well for me. So what I'm going to do for the 1 Series is I'm going to be buying a new suspension. Probably just going to go with the same thing, to be honest, because I really like these road and track coilovers. I don't know, man. For the money, like I've tried so many different types of suspension setups. And for the money, what you spend, I think that the Öhlins Road and Track is the best option. Like best bang for the buck, best quality, and just best all around coilover setup. Like you're gonna be able to go as low as you really want to, and you're just getting a super compliant suspension setup that works really well for street and track. It is rush hour, bro. So, you know, if you look at it, these are, what, a little like 2,500, right in the somewhere in the 2,000 range. And they are just so good. Like they're so comfortable and they're so quiet, even with the camber plates and everything, man. This setup is just freaking golden. It took me a while to figure out a really, really good setup for these cars, and I just have nothing but good things to say about Öhlins Road and Track coilovers paired with the Milway camber plates. I'm sure you could run other camber plates like ground control or Vorschlag, but this setup just seems to be really working well for me. And the great thing is this exact setup is going to work on my 1 Series as well once I swap everything over. So I'm just gonna buy the exact same setup. And with the camber plates, with the coilovers, it's somewhere around $3,000. But I'm telling you guys, if you haven't tried out these coilovers before, I highly recommend. I completely forgot how good they were just by driving around on the stock shocks and the Eibach springs for so long. I was quickly reminded as soon as I put these on, man, these are just incredible coilovers. It completely changes the car. Like everything about this car is just completely different. If you buy anything for your car, buy these coilovers. Just try it, man. I'm telling you, they're phenomenal. As always, I have everything linked down below for you guys if you're interested in what I'm using on this car so far. So we are heading back down the road of transforming this car, retransforming this car into the build that I think it should be. And it's going to be much more track focused. Right now, you obviously see I have the Sportsters in here. I don't really think the Sportsters are track focused seats, but they're all I had laying around. And it's better than running the stock seats. The stock seat sits way too high. The Sportsters are much, much better for this car. So I am going to be swapping out all of the red that you see. We're going to be going over to black. The rear seats are going to be going, and yeah, there's going to be a lot of changes. Some changes that you guys may not love, but that's okay. It's not your car, and we're all just here for the progress, right? No exhaust, no plenum, no intake, nothing. It just sounds so good. However, that will be changing. So you're probably wondering, well, how different is this build going to be than the previous build? It's going to be a lot different. There's a ton of stuff that we didn't really touch on with the previous setup that I think is really important, and I'm going to be touching on it in this setup. For one, we're going to be doing a complete cooling package. We're going to be changing out some things in the transmission, including the clutch. We're going to be doing a different short throw. I have a lot of you guys ask me to do an RTD shifter in both the 1 Series and this car. I've got to admit, I'm not a fan of the RTD shifters. It's just me. I would rather go with just like a simple SSK or maybe even an adjustable SSK, but the big RTDs, man, I don't like the way they look. I don't like the way they feel. And yes, I've driven multiple cars with RTD shifters. There's nothing wrong with them, and obviously you guys can run whatever you want in your car. But for me personally, they're just not for me. I prefer having like the OE setup with just a little bit of a shorter throw. I will say this factory throw is not it. It's pretty long, and especially on track, that's gonna become super, super annoying. I had the Dynon SSK in my E36 M3, and that was pretty good. However, I think there are much better options out there for this car. I sort of want to entertain the thought of doing like a carbon drive shaft on this car, and then I want to change out the transmission mounts. I have brand new OEM transmission mounts, but I want to see if there's a company that offers sort of like a mixture between OEM and poly. I don't want to go all the way poly because I think that just becomes too much and then you get a lot of noise and vibration. But there's companies like Rogue Engineering that sort of have a good middle ground between OEM and poly, and I ran those on the E36 and those are really, really, really good without increasing a whole bunch of noise and vibration. So I'm gonna see, I gotta do some research and see if there's something out there like that. The clutch on this car is due, man. This clutch does not feel great in this car, so we're gonna be changing that out as well. Probably just gonna do OEM. From all of the research that I've done, it seems like that's the way to go. As far as tires, I'm on the R888s right now, but I do want to see, I've been looking at the RE71 Bridgestones. I kind of want to try those out next. But yeah, this thing is just on rails, man. Like with this coilover kit, whoop, 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 just on rails, dude. It's crazy how it changes the car. I can't wait to feel it on the track, because it's one thing, you know, when you're out on like roads like this, I can do a little bit of driving, but I can't do like real driving. So on the track, it's really, really gonna make a massive difference. So we just got back from Orlando, Florida. Man, Bimmer Invasion was so much fun, but I completely failed, you guys. I did not make a video. I didn't record a single thing while I was at Bimmer Invasion. And while the show was absolutely fantastic, I spent all of my time talking to you guys, which is good, and that's what it's all about. But I didn't make any content, and I'm kind of bummed about that, man, because I really did have a take on it. You know, I saw a lot of cars that I thought were interesting, and a lot of the videos that I see people uploading, they're great videos, but I think that people missed like a lot of the really, really cool builds at that show. Let's be honest. Bimmer Invasion, any of these larger new car shows, it really should just be called G8X Invasion. Everybody has a G80, a G82. G87s are becoming more and more popular, but man, those G80s and G82s, it's like, who are you if you don't have one? It's pretty crazy. It really is, but they're fantastic cars. I'm just starting to see them freaking everywhere, man. And while I love them, the more that I see them, the less that I want to own one. I know that that sounds really odd, but when I go to these car shows, I'm always more impressed by the builds that are true builds. Like, people went out there and found these cars and they needed to love, they needed a new refresh on life, and then they build them up. You know, that is what I consider a build. And all of the cars were just like buying a new car and slapping on some modifications and calling it a build. Now, I'm not discrediting any of the builds there. I understand that even with just slapping on modifications, it can easily become super, super expensive. But I just like to see a little bit more ingenuity, a little bit more creativity when it comes to these cars. I don't know. I guess I'm just getting old, man. I don't know what it is, but I just find that, you know, when we go to these car shows, I want to see people who are being challenged when they build these cars. I sort of feel like I hit a point in my career where I'm not gonna build a car unless I'm being challenged. A car like this, it's not even really a build. Like, the 1 Series was a build, and the next car, you guys, that we get into is going to be a build. But this is more just like a fun little road track toy weekender that I'm building up. It's not really a build. And I think that a lot of people are calling cars builds nowadays when they're just not that, you know? I think we kind of get confused as to what the term build actually means. Oh man, I can't wait to get some sound back in this car. It's gonna sound so freaking good, man. We got a full exhaust coming, full intake and plenum set up for this car. It's gonna be sick, man. I'm trying to decide if this is a car that I really want to supercharge down the road. I'm entertaining it, but I just don't know how these, like, longevity-wise, I don't know how these engines like that. These are fragile, man. The S65 is sort of a fragile and expensive beast. If not maintained properly, you know, we're doing the best we can do. We're doing the best we can do to keep this thing running as long as possible, and I just don't know if supercharger is the way to go. My buddy Zach, as you guys saw in the feature film, has one that's supercharged, and it was just such a good car. At a little over 500 wheel, man, these cars are just fucking animals. Like, they're just so good. So good. That's what makes me want to supercharge this car. So yeah, Bimmer Invasion, super, super fun. Unfortunately, I have no videos for you guys. I'm so sorry, but the great news is that I got to speak to all of you. I had so much time to talk to you guys and talk about builds and show you my builds, and oh man, it was just a lot of fun, man. I had a really, really, really good time. Even though it rained out, like the weather could not have been worse. It was still a really cool time. And the thing is, you know, they asked me if I wanted to be inside this year, and I was like, no, I want to be outside. You know, 2 years ago I did inside, it was cool. But this year I want to be outside because it's a vibe, dude. It's live, it's a party. And of course, it just fucking pisses rain the entire time. My luck. So that was really kind of a bummer, you know. It's spent a lot of money to get the car down there and make everything happen. Literally, like, just finish building that car for that show, transport thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, you guys, just to have a rained out event. And that's just the way it goes. That's just the way it goes sometimes. But it was a great time talking to you guys, and you know, I had an absolute blast meeting so many of you. Looking forward to going back next year and doing it even bigger. So yeah, back to the builds. You know, I also think that the one thing about these car shows, you know, they have like the judging system and everything, which is cool. I've never really been someone who like builds cars to win awards or whatever. I just build the cars because I like building the cars, you know. But the one thing that I see a lot is you have like shop builds and then you have like people builds, right? They're two very different things. Shops have budgets, especially larger shops. They have incredible, huge, massive budgets. The type of budgets that the majority of people like you and I are not going to be able to touch. And I just think that a lot of the people who are coming out of their own pockets and their own time and their own labor and their own garage to build these cars, they can't really compete with a lot of these larger shops. I think it would just be kind of cool to see a separation in like categories. So you could have some of these cars that were being built by people and some by shops that were both being recognized, because I think that it's just a different level, man. Like when you get into these builds, you're talking six-figure builds, you guys. Like not even including the car, you're talking about literally hundreds of thousands of dollars are going into some of these builds. And for the majority of people, they're not gonna be able to afford that. Whereas like shop builds, they could easily surpass that. And let's be honest, it's a write-off, you know? It's a company vehicle and you're modifying it for that company. It's literally a write-off. That's what I do. I have a corporation. This channel is a business. These cars are business. These modifications are business. So it's just different, and I would love to see some of the people, you know, who are building cars in their own garage with their own labor and their own pocketbooks get a bit more recognition. Yeah, that was yellow, right? Yeah, that was yellow. So yeah, I don't know, man. I just think that would be cool. Like, it felt like all I was seeing were like these shop cars that were getting awards and, you know, the most recognition in the entire show. And let's face it, man, like, to me, that's not really that impressive. I want to see humans building these cars, like one guy in his garage who had a vision for the car, had to work his ass off to make it work, had to do all the wrenching himself. Like, that's the type of shit that I want to see. For me, personally, that's really what I think is cool and like what I value. But nonetheless, the show was sick. That show is just absolutely massive. Like, even with the rain, you guys, like so many people came out to the show. It was crazy. And the amount of conversations. Dude, I didn't stop talking. Like literally just one person after another talking to me about the build, what I'm doing, the next build, previous builds, all of the shit. And yeah, man, just so you guys know, that stuff does not go unnoticed. I remember these conversations. I remember your faces. I remember the things that you say to me about previous cars and future cars and what you like to see. I just like that kind of shit, man. It's cool. It really shows like your audience's devotion to your craft. So yeah, overall, show was sick. We had a lot of fun. Transport up there with the car was super sketchy. I ended up getting this like Croatian dude who basically tried to like overcharge me $500 for the transport. He was just not professional, like didn't have professional equipment. You know, when you're paying for enclosed transport, you're paying for your shit to get taken care of. The type of people who are requesting enclosed transports, they're typically supercars or just nicer cars. And you would also expect that the type of person who would be picking up your car with an enclosed transport would have that level of trailer and equipment. They would be invested in their company. Man, the guy up there was really sketchy. Like, I was not happy with that portion of it. However, it made up for it in the return because the shipping back, the guy was fantastic. Keith, shout out to you, bro, if you're watching. His name was Keith. He had a really, really nice trailer. He took care of all of his shit. He was just very clear and communicated with me on everything. I wasn't sure who to use. This was my first time transporting, so I had to use a broker company. The broker's job is basically just the middleman. They're just setting you up with the transport and they take their cut. So I kind of had to start there because I didn't know who to call. However, now that I have Keith's information, he works all of the East Coast. So if I want to go back down to Florida or all the way up to New York, he is my guy. Bam, just cut out the broker. The broker was terrible. If you guys ever heard of Shiplux, S-H-I-P-L-U-X, do not use. If you're looking for better enclosed trailer, I can give you the information of the person you need. His name is Keith, man, and he just took care of me. Like, he called me, told me where the car was going to be, told me where the car was. I did have GPS in my car and Apple AirTag, so I could track where it was. Yeah, he was just super professional, and you could tell that this guy like knew what he was doing. And for the price, I think it was completely worth it. For Florida to my house in Charlotte, North Carolina, enclosed trailer was $550. I gave him $600, tipped him $50, just because he was doing such a good job. It was just such a world of a different experience than when I went down there, and it was just so scary with the first guy, who I actually ended up paying more. I had to pay the guy that I went down there $700. So yeah, just shows, you know, sometimes it's not about how much you pay, it's about who you are paying. I also have my carbon roof for this car that it will be here this weekend, and then we have to start doing work on that. I have to hire a guy to come take out the glass and do all that shit. So lots of shit on deck, you guys. It's gonna get wild, I'm telling you right now. It's going to get crazy. It's going to get crazy fast, but it's going to be worth it. And we're about to see some completely different cars here. Look at how crazy this car looks with just a different wheel setup and suspension. Completely different car. It looks so good. Everyone hates on black wheels, man. I don't know why. Like, I think that black wheels look good. I understand that they're hard to film and hard to photograph and like hard to see, but once you see it in person, especially with the gold against this wrap color, I just think that contrast is like so good on this car. I really, really love this titanium look mixed with the black and mixed with the gold calipers, because there's a little bit of gold in the wrap that sort of goes with the theme of the calipers. But yeah, man, this car looks freaking amazing. Just some simple things that I added. Granted, a lot of money in these modifications, but just some very simple things, and it's like a whole new car. Anyways, you guys, we got lots of content coming up on the E92 M3. It is going to get good. It's going to get good fast. Thank you guys as always for watching the videos. We'll see you in the next one.